The open meeting law requires that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Therefore, please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. And the first item on the agenda is request authorization for the approval of the minutes of November 15, 2018. Motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 2, request authorization to enter into a license agreement with John Moriarty and Associates, Inc. for the use of a small portion of Pier 5 for the live staging of 2 construction vehicles within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In October 2018, just recently, the Cronin Group has commenced construction on a 22-story mixed-use building at 150 Northern Avenue, at least for now still referred to as the Whiskey Priest site. Cronin has hired John Moriarty and Associates as a general contractor. Like any urban construction site, land is tight around the site, and Moriarty is seeking a safe location to stage construction vehicles that is both nearby but out of harm's way. We're proposing to allow Moriarty to stage 2 vehicles on vacant land at Pier 5 in the Raymond Flynn Marine Park for a fee of $1,500 per month on a month-to-month basis. That'll not only generate some modest revenue to the agency, but assist in public safety in the seaport.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Dennis. Item number 3, request authorization to enter into a lease with Suffolk Construction Company for approximately 1,238 square feet of space located at 22 Dry Dock Ave, suite number 304 within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In 2016, the BPDA awarded development rights to Harbinger Development to construct a new Hilton brand hotel on Parcel A, also in the Raymond Flynn Marine Park. Construction has started, and the piles are now in the ground. Harbinger has hired Suffolk Construction to build the hotel. Suffolk's track record for urban development is well documented, and Harbinger has certainly selected a reputable contractor. Again, like most urban construction sites, land is very tight, and there's not sufficient land for Suffolk to place a mobile trailer to serve as their construction office. We're proposing to lease to Suffolk a currently vacant 1,200 square foot office space in 22 Dry Dock Avenue on the 3rd floor for an 18-month period. The rental rate is very competitive in this market, especially considering that Suffolk will be taking the space as is. There's no real estate commission, and there's no parking. And we will net over about $65,000 during the 18-month term.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Item number 4, the FY19 Quarter 1 budget update. Michelle.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary. I am Michelle Goldberg, the Budget Director for the BPDA. As calendar year 2018 comes to a close, I'm happy to present to you a summary of our FY18 operating and capital performance, as well as an FY19 first quarter update. I'm joined by our controller, Bob Luisi. I have a few slides for you, and then we'll answer any questions you might have. Fiscal year 2018 ran from July 1, 2017 to June 30, 2018. Overall, the BPDA saw positive performance for fiscal year 18. The FY18 budget projected a combined surplus of about $449,000 by the close of the 4th quarter. Our auditors have not yet completed their work with the BRA, but from an operating perspective, these numbers are worth reviewing. On the revenue side, our rental and leases category is showing a $3.5 million favorable variance, which is up $2.5 million from what we saw in the 2nd quarter. At that time, we knew about the Blue Hills Bank Pavilion generating higher than anticipated revenue from concert ticket sales, the early payment from the long-term agreement for the Jewish housing for the elderly, and the Harbinger Hotel lease extension option being paid up front. Since then, parking revenue has performed better than expected in the third and fourth quarter, and revenue from percentage rent came in higher than anticipated as well. Another example of some smaller one-time favorable variances was an unanticipated transaction for the Broad Street air rights that was about $590,000. The equity participation line had slow activity in the first and second quarter, but ultimately landed with a modest favorable variance of just over $314,000. The sale of real estate category was also slow in the first half of the year, but a land disposition agreement, or LDA, of the 150 Seaport Avenue yielded a $1.95 million, pushing this category into a positive variance as well. The grant income category contains everybody's favorite item, the intercompany grant, which has a direct relationship with the expense category of contractual services. The intercompany grant is a contractual expense for the EDIC and grant income for the BRA. So ultimately, they offset each other. You can see how surpluses in contractual services spending means that less expected grant income activity. This was our trend all year. On the expense side, we have a few variances worth noting. The FY18 budget expected 246 for headcount, and as of the last pay period in June, there were 236 active employees. We are seeing surpluses in our salary line because of those ongoing vacancies. Additional savings were realized when the BPDA worked with our actuarials to review our post-retirement liabilities. These expenses are based on a schedule that takes into account actual liabilities. That work helped identify reductions in those liabilities, which enabled us to reduce our expenses in this category. This is good because our payments are on a schedule and that we will have reduced expenses in the future as well. In other expense categories, we are seeing some variances. We did see higher than anticipated expenses for snow removal. This is an area where we will realize the benefits of our work around account continuity, and we'll be able to make better projections based on cleaner multi-year historical data. That said, meteorologists can continue to predict the weather. We also saw higher than anticipated costs related to the China Trade Center now that it is fully occupied. There were several odds and ends that we needed to address due to that change. These deficits were offset by small savings in property management category areas like fuel and lower depreciation than we planned for. Because of generally low spending and increased revenue on the BRA side, there's less of a need for an intercompany grant, so that drives down the contracted services based on making less expenses for the EDIC. So this is our first quarter for FY19. That began on July 1, 2018, and ended on September 30th. Considering the seasonality we expect to see in the first quarter, the BPDA is on a stable pace. As in years past, the behavior of the intercompany grant demonstrates that slow spending in contractual services for the BRA means low EDIC contractual spending and low revenue for the BRA grants, because the intercompany grant is not yet moving. We are attributing some of this to the fact that we are realizing investments that we made in the China Trade Center now that it is fully occupied. We also know that so far, the second quarter, several large real estate deals have happened or will be closing soon, and FY19 is on track to be a strong year for the BPDA. We can now turn to our summary. Ooh, did I just ruin something here? There we go. Our summary of capital spending. Please note that this is as of yesterday, and it does not include payments that will be authorized this evening. Our IT department has done thorough needs assessments for the housing compliance portal, and we have already rolled out our content management system known as Box. Given the ultimate product we went with, the content management expenses were funded through our operating budget and not our capital budget, which is why you don't see much activity in the management information services group. Final payments are being made and work is wrapping up on the China Trade Center. The procurement office is busy getting invitation for bids prepared for several of the projects planned in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. We are also actively working on projects that are funded through the City of Boston's capital budget. In conclusion, I'm happy to report that the FY19 budget book is available on our website. Hard copies for the board will be available soon. This is our second year publishing this document, and while some folks may not notice, it's a significant improvement on our FY18 book. I would like to thank the incredibly talented and patient Stephen Costa, a member of our graphics team in MIS. He spent countless hours patiently responding to every edit, request, and change. I spent several sessions with him live editing the book, asking him to move tables, reformat, debating how to align columns, the really glamorous side of putting a document like this together. He was a huge help, and I'm grateful to him and the entire MIS team for their support. And of course, thank you to the budget and finance staff for their ongoing dedication and participation in this work. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Are there any questions from the board or comments?
Michelle, thank you for that presentation. Can you talk about what we do with our surpluses, our operating surpluses? Does that?
Sure.
Yeah,
So
had them,
I believe
so.
it was the last or maybe the board meeting before. What we've been trying to do is set up a process to set aside funds for our capital expenditures. So Bob might be able to talk to the details of that a bit more, but there's a relationship between our operating budget and our capital budget and the cash outlay for that. And so Bob, I don't know if you have a more eloquent way to describe that.
Hi, good evening. Bob Luisi from the Finance Department. So what we did with last month's board meeting is we put together a new field for cash outlays, and long story short, we're reserving money now for the tremendous cash outlays that will be needed in the future for the hundreds of millions of dollars needed in infrastructure spending that the BRA will be undertaking shortly. So that's what's happening now with a lot of our cash overages. So we're setting them aside for future needs.
Great, thank you, Bob.
You know, I have a question regarding the rental and our leases. Are we getting everything we're entitled to? I remember years ago that we had this audit that was prepared, and they said there were several leases that we weren't getting the escalation for rent increases. Is all that in place and up to date, and are you able to track it?
Since that time, we've put in a Yardi system, and we've put a new department in place. And not only are we doing those things, we've found ways to enhance current revenue based on some of that. And if the next deal with Partners is signed, we'll have recovered over $3 million. Plus, the running rates are already higher than they used to be from that. And I think most of the leases and all of those issues are in a much better place than they were before.
Okay.
And there's very good results out of that.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, if there's no further questions, please thank all the staff for doing this, and we appreciate it, and we appreciate the transparency that the agency's showing that has been lacking in years past. But we're here now, we're up to date, and we really appreciate all your work.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. There's no real vote on this. We're just going to, well, I guess we can vote to accept it. No?
No.
No. We'll accept it anyway. But thank you, Michelle, and thank you, staff. The next item is personnel. Jeanette?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary. We have a few items for your consideration on the EDIC agenda. We have 5 appointments for your consideration with all details in the board memos. Kayla Myros, Research Assistant with the Research Department with a start date of January 7th. Lisa Harrington, Counsel with the Office of General Counsel Department starting December 17th. Lindsay Woodson, Planner 2 in the Downtown Neighborhood Planning Department starting February 4th. Xavier Savage, Special Projects Coordinator in the Administration and Management Department starting December 17th. Megan Williams, Special Advisor Fellow in the Real Estate Department starting July 15th. We have 5 employment service contract agreements for your consideration with all details listed in the board memos. Janet Carlson from the Office of General Counsel Department. From the OWD, Boston Tax Help Coalition, we have 3 employment service contractors, Maya Getter, Joanne Evans, and Ada Pandoja, and Ryan Frania from the Compliance Department. We have 1 status change for your consideration with details listed in the board memo. Cecilia Mondesir, Finance Coordinator in the Budget and Finance Department. We also have 1 departure. Cornell Mills was the Re-Entry Collab Project Manager from OWD. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you,
Thank you.
Jeanette. We need a motion to adjourn the EDIC meeting.
I'll move we adjourn the EDIC meeting.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, ayes have it. Meeting adjourned. The open meeting law requires that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Therefore, please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. And the first item is a request authorization for the approval of the minutes of November 15th, 2018. Motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Item number 2, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on January 17th, 2019 at 5:30 p.m. are at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the development plan for Planned Development Area Number 120 at 144 Addison Street, East Boston. Motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Item number 3, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on January 17th, 2019 at 5:40 p.m. or at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the development plan for Planned Development Area Number 118, Rio Grande Dudley Square Development at 2343 through 2345 Washington Street and 11 through 29 Roxbury Street, Roxbury. Motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 4, the Board of Appeals. Are there any changes or amendments, Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. No changes. There are 33 petitions that are going to be transmitted to the Board of Appeal for their hearings on this coming Tuesday. Be happy to answer any questions if you have.
Okay, are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Jeff. Item number 5, request authorization to award a 2-year contract with AMPM Facility Services for the cleaning services of the China Trade Center located at 2 Boylston Street in an amount not to exceed $500,000. Richard.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary. This memorandum requests that the director be authorized to award a contract for the cleaning of the China Trade Center to AMPM Facility Services. AMPM Facility Services is a union-based company. The 32BJ SEIU recognizes this entity as a responsible contractor committed to providing jobs that meet local standards and maintaining area standard wages and working conditions.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Have a joyous holiday season, everybody.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
Thanks. Item number 6, request authorization to amend the ground lease with Charlestown Rope Walk LLC, redeveloper of Building 58 and Building 60, located on a portion of parcel NY-1 in the historic monument area of the Charlestown Navy Yard within the Charlestown Urban Renewal Area. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In June of 2016, Charlestown Rope Walk LLC was awarded final designation for the development of the Rope Walk building in the historic Charlestown Navy Yard. They'll be developing 97 units of housing, of which 20% will be affordable. The lease was fully executed in December of 2017, and the lease terms required that 2 conditions. One, that both financing and building permits would be secured by dates certain, or the lease may be terminated. The board last authorized an amendment to the lease in September of 2018 to allow additional time to secure financing and permits through December 31st of 2018. The development team has successfully secured equity and a construction financing commitment, and we're all quite anxious to close on the financing. We're in the final stages of BPDA approval of development and site plans, and the developer is ready and willing to file at ISD for building permits. One very small wrinkle has developed since September, where the National Park Service alerted BPDA and the developer of a federal regulation that requires language in the lease pertaining to the definition and calculation of, and excuse my air quotes, excess profit, which the developer would be required to invest in the Charlestown Navy Yard preservation. Although a worthy cause, this is not a project that's going to have a problem with excess profit. BPDA and the National Park Service and the developer have been working together diligently to develop appropriate language for the lease, which we believe will be acceptable to the National Park Service, and the Park Service has indicated that verbally. There's no reason to suspect that the excess profit language will not be formalized in December, and we feel absolutely confident that the developer is indeed ready to close on financing and obtain building permits. In an abundance of caution, we're requesting a lease amendment to extend the financing and permitting deadline just to be certain that the lease deadlines are met. We're requesting permission to amend the lease to extend the deadline for financing and permits through March of 2019, and to further amend the lease to reflect the excess profit language that is required by the federal government. All other terms of the lease will remain unchanged. I see no scenario where I will be back at this podium in March asking for an additional extension.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dennis. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none. A motion's in order?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Item number 7. Request authorization to revise language to the previous board approval of the Central Artery Project Parcel 3 Park Design and Construction process, and to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Transportation or its agent. Kenan.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, board members and Secretary Paul Hemus. My name is Kenan Ryan. I'm a BPDA senior planner in downtown and neighborhood planning. We're requesting board authorization. It was granted originally on June 14th, 2018 for 2 items. First was to advertise and issue a request for proposals for design services for the design of a new park on the Mass Department of Transportation Central Artery Tunnel Project Parcel 2 on the Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy Greenway for an amount of approximately $100,000 from funds received from the related Beals the Beverly project. The second was to execute a memorandum of agreement, an MOA, with Mass DOT for the CAT project Parcel 2 park design and construction process. Through recent discussions with both MassDOT and the Greenway Conservancy is intended to act as MassDOT's agent during the design and construction of this project, and will ultimately be responsible for programming and maintenance of the Parcel 2 project. Today we're requesting authorization to execute an MOA with MassDOT or its agent, in this case the Greenway Conservancy, moving forward for the CAT project parcel number 2 during the construction process. The text in front of you is a reproduction from the memorandum dated June 14th, 2018, with revisions to the previous authorization italicized and bolded to reflect the inclusion of language authorizing both MassDOT and its agent to complete the design and construction of the process. None of the intent of the project has changed at this point. It's more about allowing the Greenway Conservancy to move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Ken. Item number 8, request authorization to enter into the citywide license agreement for the electronic signage. Mark.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Mark McGonigal, Community Affairs Liaison for the BPDA. I'm here before you this afternoon to request authorization for the director to enter into license agreements for electronic signs, electronic billboards. More specifically, for electronic billboards that fall outside of the 3 zones that are articulated in Section 11-7 of the Boston zoning code. For your reminder, those are the, and I can't even remember them offhand. That's the Theater District, that's the Seaport Convention Center area, as well as the Theater District. So 11-7 of the code requires certain conditions, allows for electronic signage so long as they meet a host of conditions, mainly size, luminosity, et cetera. But one of those is also that the owner enter into a license agreement with the BPDA to make sure we can ensure compliance. And these are also, I should add, for billboards that have already been approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So in order for us to make sure that if a billboard is approved by the ZBA, but outside of one of those zones, we're requesting authorization for the director to enter into those license agreements.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Are there any questions from the board?
How many signs and what signs are you talking about exactly?
Well, this is not specific to any particular sign. I will also say that there are some electronic signs that have passed the ZBA and have yet to execute license agreements because of this concern. So, but to be clear, this is not, while it would affect, I guess, any sign outside of those zones, it's not specific to any particular sign. Is that
I
your
guess
question?
I'm
sorry.
asking how many signs are being approved outside of the districts where they are, you know?
Well,
for the-
that's, at the moment, I'm only aware of 2 that are out there, but I'm also aware that there are applications in front of the ZBA. So seeing that there have been a couple that have already passed, and there are property owners that are petitioning to ask for more, we want to try to get ahead of that. But there are not, I think to answer your question, there are not a lot of already approved signs out there.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no further questions and a motion is in order.
Mike has a question.
Oh, I'm
Just
sorry.
more of a statement. Mark,
Mm-hmm.
it still has to go to the state board. So
Correct.
no matter what we approve here, it's still getting approved there.
Absolutely.
Okay, if there's no further questions, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you, Mark.
You.
Item number 9, request authorization to extend a tentative designation of the Boston Chinese Evangelical Church, redeveloper of a portion of parcel R-3A-2, also known as a portion of parcel A, consisting of approximately 12,190 square feet, located at the corner of Washington Street and Marginal Road in the South Cove Urban Renewal Area. Raul.
Good afternoon, Chairman Burke, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, members of the board. The Boston Chinese Evangelical Church, also known as BCEC, is currently located at 249 Harrison Ave, adjacent to parcel R3A-2 in the South Cove Urban Renewal Area. A number of years ago, the BCEC proposed a land swap to exchange their property with a portion of parcel R3A-2 of equal size. The purpose of this proposal is for the church to be able to expand its ministries to a new building on a rectangular site, as the existing triangular configuration of the church site limits its ability to expand its size and capacity. The relocation of the school facility located on this parcel has to take place prior to the commencement of new construction. This extension will allow the church additional time to complete an approved site plan, show evidence of funds and financial commitments, allow the relocation of the school facility to a different location, and will provide BPDA and City of Boston staff additional time to resolve the existing title issues.
Okay, thank you, Raul. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. Thank you, Raul.
Thank you.
Item number 10, request authorization to award the tentative designation to 288 Tremont Street Partners, LLC, for the long-term lease and redevelopment of a portion of parcel P-12 located at 290 Tremont Street in the South Cove Urban Renewal Area for the mixed-use project consisting of 45 affordable rental units, 126 affordable home ownerships, an expansion to the Doubletree Hotel, an expansion to the Tough Shared Services Garage, and the inclusion of a new Chinatown branch, and to take all related actions. Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, and members of the board. I'm delighted to be here this afternoon to request that the board please vote to authorize tentative designation status to 288 Tremont Street Partners, LLC for the redevelopment of a portion of parcel 12C located at 290 Tremont Street in the South Cove Urban Renewal Area in the Chinatown Midtown Cultural District section of the city. This approximately 29,000 square foot BPD-owned site has been operated as a parking lot by private parking operators, currently ABM, on behalf of the BPDA for a number of years. 288 Tremont Street Partners, LLC is a collaborative entity consisting of the Asian Community Development Corporation, Corcoran Jennison Company Incorporated, owner of the Doubletree Hotel to the south of the site, Millennium Boston, and Tufts Shared Services, Inc., who own the parking garage that's located to the north of the site. 288 Tremont Street Partners submitted the sole proposal in response to BPDA's request for proposals, which was due on January 10, 2018. This RFP sought a mixed-use development, including rental and homeownership units with an emphasis on affordable units, parking, commercial space, and possible community space. As discussed at previous boards, this site has been on the community's radar for a number of years. Accordingly, the BPDA conducted a robust year-long community process to craft development guidelines that we contained in the RFP. This process was also informed by the 2010 Chinatown Master Plan, as well as community visioning workshops and charrettes co-sponsored by several community nonprofit organizations. 288 Tremont Street and Partners is proposing to construct an approximately 350-foot tall building of approximately 339,000 square feet, featuring approximately 152 affordable rental and homeownership units, approximately 264 parking space expansion of the adjacent Tufts garage, an expansion of the hotel, and approximately 8,000 square feet of community space on the ground level, also including a pedestrian connection and community courtyard. The affordable homeownership units represent Millennium's off-site inclusionary development units from their currently under construction Winthrop Square project. Total development cost for the project is approximately $174 million, and I'll now turn it over to Joe Larkin and Hallie Thomas of Millennium, along with some other members of the team.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Gina, and I'm here representing the Asian Community Development Corporation. I'm here on behalf of our executive director, Angie Liu, who couldn't make it, alongside Kyle Sullivan, our real estate director. With me, I have our partners in the proposal, Jim Foley from Tufts Shared Services, Joe Larkin from Millennium, and lastly, Mike Corcoran from Corcoran Jennison Companies. So we at ACDC are really excited as the community partners for this proposal because we were the ones really driving the community visioning process all the way back in 2015. And so this is a great partnership, a complex project, and really excited to be working alongside longtime neighbors, Tufts and Corcoran.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Gina. I'm Joe Larkin with Millennium Partners, and as said before, this is part of our obligation to the Winthrop Square project. Something that's under construction right now, and a project that has allowed us to sort of integrate with the city in a really meaningful way. This is a big one for us. It could very well be our most meaningful project, but the thing that's most compelling about this project is the partnership that we've been able to establish here with Corcoran Jennison, Asian CDC, and Tufts. This is really complex, okay? And it's going to continue to be complex. And it's been hard from the very beginning. It's the reason why this project has probably not happened in a really long time, despite the location. It's a project that there's a lot that's being asked of it. But most importantly, it's a really interesting concept where we have non-for-profits, two not-for-profits, two profit companies, and you guys coming together here to create something that the city and the community has really asked for. It's something that we're very proud of, and it's something that that we hope that we'll be able to continue to work together with you guys to bring this to fruition. And I want to hand this over to my associate here, Hallie Aubeck. Who'll walk you a little bit about the design, and then all of us are here and available to answer any questions you might have on any component of the project.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm going to just go forward a couple slides. My name's Hallie Auerbach-Thomas. I'm with MP Boston. I'm just going to quickly run through some slides supporting how our proposed design truly supports all of Joe's and Ray's comments of our team's collaboration and unique ability to propose a compelling project on a constrained mid-block site. So this is a quick neighborhood site plan. The site is outlined in the dash red line. We have Chinatown to the east, Bay Village to the west, the Theater District to the north. So it's a really convergence of these neighborhoods. Tremont Street sits to the left of the site and Washington's to the right. So this is a blown up picture of the parcel that is dashed out in red. This is really illustrating the pedestrian connector that we are proposing. And this is possible because of the parcel outlined in blue that is owned by Corcoran Jennison, who is a partner on our team. And we're able to create this pedestrian connector connecting Bay Village through to Chinatown and Tufts Medical with this collaboration. This is just a picture of the existing site. Again, a butter who's on the team Tufts in their garage to the left, and the Doubletree Hotel, which is owned by Corcoran Jennison, to the right. And this is just showing how there's this existing connection through this mid-block site already. And we've heard from the public that this is an important feature to maintain. Overview of the program, starting at the top, is the residential component. In yellow, that's 100% affordable, as mentioned. And then sitting below that, the podium level, is a hotel. In the back, we see the parking, which slides over a community component that we hope to be possibly the Boston Public Library. On the ground level, we also have the residential and hotel lobbies. And at the bottom, again to the left, is the existing garage and the hotel to the right. This is showing the hotel and how with the collaboration of the hotel, we sit right on the property. And we're actually connecting the hotel to the existing hotel on levels 2 through 5. It really allows us to maximize the site. Again, the Tufts, which connects the expansion of the Tufts garage, it connects to the existing garage, and the Tufts sits behind the site, really buried in the site. It has no frontage on Tremont Street, and the only access to the garage is through the existing Tufts garage. So there's no additional curb cuts for that garage component. This is a view from that pedestrian corridor. So we see this as an urban plaza. This is looking back at the proposed building. So a nice just urban green space that's also this connection. And this is the proposed buildings as it sits today. Do you want to, Joe's going to talk about some of the diversity and inclusion components.
We talk about design, and we haven't started the Article 80 process, and there's a lot to do on this project together here like this, but we start everything, and the team here was a big contributor to all this. If you look at what the Corcoran Jennison company does, if you look at what Tufts does, they make commitments to people of all sorts of Bostonians in jobs and opportunities. In this particular project, we've learned and we've understood. We're going to continue that endeavor here that they've already shown, and something that we've also adopted over at Winthrop Square, and we've actually are going to try to increase those goals, so that, for instance, 20%, of the contracts associated with this project are going to go to minority-owned companies and women-owned companies, and we're going to be putting that in right at the RFP process. Like, for instance, here it's a little bit unusual. Some of the projects, the things that Hallie has already shown, has been prepared by a really good architectural firm, Stantec. Stantec's not our architect yet. Stantec has to prove to us and prove to this team here that they're going to be able to sort of not only create a great building for us, but also hit these goals. It's setting up that competition and setting up that infrastructure and making it a priority is something that we've learned, and we're continuing to learn, and we're hoping to be successful. That's about the contracts, and about the employees here and the construction workers here across the board. We're continuing to expand those opportunities and continuing to build the base, so that when we say we're going to hit those goals of 50% City of Boston people, 40% minorities, and 12% women in the construction trades, that we're really going to have a solid shot to be able to do that. And we're all here available to answer any questions.
So that concludes your presentation?
Thank you, yes.
Okay, great. Are there any questions from the board?
It's very exciting to see 100% affordable development in this location. Can you talk about the finances and how that is being made possible?
Yeah, so the a big part of the financing of this is two things. There's the infrastructure that we have such that there's a shared cost. So Tufts is paying for their portion, Corcoran Genesis paying for their portion, and our portion, the significant component of this, is an obligation that we have out of our $1,350 million project at Winthrop Square. So this will be done in concert with our existing financing along with that project there, and because that requirement was put on us, then we're going to have to finance that all at the same time. The hard part is bringing the timing together completely and using with the Asian CDC through their low-income housing tax credit components is to get their collection of different funds together so that when we're finished with this particular project that they can then own it themselves. All right? And in there we have various options. You have probably one of the most astute people in that industry sitting in front of you that works for you with Tim right there, who is constantly thinking about ways for him to balance out those sources and uses. We have opportunities here. You had a director in a different project that said to us just before our approvals of the last project that we are going to contribute $4 million more to affordable housing. That's a source if you guys select to use it. There's also in this project $5 million in addition to the allocated purchase price, $5 million that we're also paying that could be a source. I'm counting on the creativity of the team, including Tim.
No pressure, Tim. No pressure.
This is a collaboration.
Thank you.
What will determine whether the branch library actually goes in here? You've expressed that is somewhat optional.
The branch library was something that the community has talked about for a long time, having a dedicated Chinatown branch library. However, there are a lot of steps involved in doing that. There's some legislative steps and things of that nature. So this is just it's a very, very preliminary suggestion. So really, we'd like to just call it, kind of community space, and that's which is something that the neighborhood through the community process had, talked about and requested. So a library is one of the things that we'll be, considering, but it is a long and involved process to actually accomplish that.
Tim Davis, Housing Policy Manager. I think this is a good moment to mention the initiative of the Housing Innovation Lab, the Housing with Public Assets, which is an initiative where we're attempting to find and locate whether it's an old library, an old fire station, or another city asset that we would like to basically renovate, restore, rebuild, but also put housing on top of it. And through that process, we're finding that there are legislative issues around procurement and building that we may need to address in order to, even though this is a completely new building, that we may need to address for this instance as well, to be able to include a build out of basically the shell for the library, that then the library would then go in and build the remainder of their project. So we'd be working on that over the next year as well.
From a design perspective, I know this building is mid-block. I also know that there have been issues around handicapped accessibility from the plaza level on Tremont Street down to the street level on Washington Street, where a number of people try to access the hospitals. Will this project have any impact on improving that access?
For the through connector, we realize that there is a grade change, and we're looking at different ramping systems. And as we get into the project, we'll do our due diligence to make sure that that pedestrian connector is definitely accessible. Yep.
Okay, and then you say you're building in from the outset some incentives for women and minority-owned firms. How are you going to enforce that?
Well, a couple things. There'll be a memorandum. I'm sure it will be required a memorandum of understanding here, like this, with that will become one of the documents associated with the Article 80 documents. I'm sure that'll exactly be the case. And then the way we really enforce it here is that it goes to our core, and that we continue to pick people and monitor people and select accordingly, and have a weighted averages, a weighted selection criteria to make sure that these opportunities exist. And it has to be a priority.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Item number 11, request authorization to extend the tentative designation of P-3 Partners LLC as the redeveloper of a portion of parcel P-3 and a portion of parcel P3-H in the Campus High School urban renewal area. Jonathan.
Good afternoon, Chairman Burke, members of the board, Director Golden, Secretary Bohemus. My name is Jonathan Grilli. I'm the Director of Development Review here at the BPDA. I stand before you this evening recommending a 1-month extension of the tentative designation for P3 Partners LLC as the redeveloper of a portion of parcel P3 and a portion of parcel 3H in the Campus High School urban renewal area, project number Mass R-120. The extension would run until January 31st, 2019. Tremont Crossing, a proposed 1.7 million square foot mixed-use project with a total development cost of $600 million, was approved for this site in February of 2018 by this board. The project site, located in Roxbury, sits along the south side of Tremont Street, just west of its intersection with Ruggles Street and the Ruggles MBTA station. Madison Park High School is immediately adjacent, and the Boston Police Headquarters is located across the street. Over the course of the last 20 months since your approval since the project approval by the board, the BPDA staff has worked diligently with the Tremont Crossing team to move this project forward. In the last month since this board's most recent extension of tentative designation, the project has made important progress with key public agencies on several outstanding items. Specific next steps over the next month include collaboration with the city's Public Improvement Commission on site plan issues, approval of the project under urban renewal, petitioning the Boston Zoning Commission for approval of the project's planned development area, and continuing to negotiate terms and conditions of the ground lease. We also expect the Tremont Crossing team will work to finalize an agreement with their joint venture partner, Landmark Properties. At this time, I'd like to introduce Barry Feldman, president of Felco Development, to speak on behalf of the development team. At the conclusion of his remarks, I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, John. Director Golden, Secretary Polemis, members of the board. My name is Barry Feldman, and on behalf of myself and my partner, Barry Gaither, we're here on behalf of P3 Partners to request an extension till the end of January of 2019 to accomplish the various initiatives that John had just set forth for you. There are a number of initiatives that are of significant importance, and this time that we are requesting, we believe will enable us to accomplish them. Specifically and recently, the BRA staff had asked us to bring certainty to the creation and execution of our joint venture agreement with our recently announced joint venture partner, Landmark Properties. This is a process that normally takes approximately 3 months to accomplish. But because of the urgency of the time sequence of this project, we were asked to try to accomplish that by the end of January. And we have agreed to make that a reality. We've set on a strategy with Landmark that we believe is very achievable, and we're going to work extremely hard during this period of time to develop that joint venture agreement, bring it forth for review and approval and execution by the allotted extension time period. In addition, as John has also enumerated, this time will also allow for the further negotiation of the ground lease, in particular concentrating on the housing program that we're building in as a part of that commitment, as well as securing our zoning designation. So we appreciate the board's consideration in granting us this time to accomplish these very important objectives. and move the project forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
Well, I'm going to ask a question.
Okay.
How can you assure the board that you're going to be able to accomplish those steps by the end of January? Let's say you do accomplish the steps that you are putting forth by the end of January. What would happen after that?
Well, with the execution of the joint venture agreement, which is our commitment to the BRA, and the execution of the ground lease and the corollary other issues that need to be satisfied as part of getting to that point, the project would then be in a position to go forward. Once we have the joint venture agreement in place and we have the ground lease, then we're off to the races. We're ready to start our project.
And what if those things are not done by the end of January?
Well, I'm hoping that doesn't occur, but if that doesn't happen, then it would be up to the board and the city to decide whether or not further extensions are warranted in our favor based on the information that we would present if needed. And we'd have to see where that went from there. But yes, I think what Barry is saying is that we want to give the board assurances that we will deliver on these commitments and our promises. We have every intention of meeting that deadline and not requesting any further time to accomplish what we have laid out today.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. There's no further questions, and a motion is in order?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Item number 12, request authorization to issue a certificate of completion for the Brook Charter High School within the Olmsted Green project located at 198 through 260 American Legion Highway in Mattapan. Motion's in order?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Item number 13, request authorization to issue a certificate of completion for the Boston East project located at 126 Border Street in East Boston. Motion's in order?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 14, request authorization to issue a certificate of completion for the 105A South Huntington project in Jamaica Plain. Tim.
Good afternoon, Chairman Burke, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. 105A South Huntington Avenue is an approximately 210,000 square foot building with approximately 195 residential units, 100 parking spaces, and approximately 1,860 square feet for one or more commercial uses at the ground floor. On June 13th, 2013, the project received Article 80B approval from the BRA board, and on September 17th, 2015, the BRA board approved a notice of project change. The BPDA staff architect inspected the project on December 4th, 2018, and found that the project was constructed according to the approved final working drawings and specifications. A final certificate of occupancy was issued on March 16th, 2018. A certificate of completion from the BRA is ordinarily issued upon determination that the project has been completed in accordance with the terms and conditions of the cooperation agreement and the final working drawings and specifications approved by the BPDA, and upon receipt of a certificate of occupancy. The project has not yet fulfilled its IDP obligation of $8.4 million, which, under the Affordable Rental Housing Agreement, is not due until March 16, 2018. The proponent intends to transfer the project to an affiliate of Oxford Properties. The buyer is requiring a certificate of completion as a term of the transfer. In order to accommodate the transfer of the project and meet the obligation under the Affordable Rental Housing Agreement, the proponent is requesting that the BPDA execute a certificate of completion to be placed in escrow and released when the IDP contribution is made to the City of Boston. The proponent will pay the contribution from the proceeds of the transfer of the project. The transfer is scheduled to close in January of 2019, and the buyer and proponent will arrange for the payment of the contribution as part of the closing. Once the IDP contribution is made, the certificate of completion will be released from escrow, and all obligations under both the cooperation agreement and the Affordable Rental Housing Agreement for the project will have been met. If for any reason the transfer does not occur or the contribution is not made by March 16, 2019, the certificate of completion will be taken out of escrow and returned to the BPDA. By accommodating the sale of the property, the BPDA is securing the IDP contribution before the original due date. The Department of Neighborhood Development is committed to using the $8.4 million contribution on projects in Jamaica Plain and Mission Hill. Thank you, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Are there any questions from the board?
I understand the legalese, but what assurance do we have that the affordable housing commitment is going to be fulfilled on this?
I'm going to let either Tim or Renee take that one.
Thank you, members of the board. We are executing an escrow agreement with an escrow agent and with the buyer and sellers of the property. And the agreement and the certificate of completion and an estoppel certificate will be put into the escrow agreement, and it will not be released per the agreement until the payment is made. So we will have
All that do is suspend the activation of the certificate of completion without necessarily assuring that the $8 million for affordable housing has been transferred?
The certificate will not be released until the money is transferred.
Is there any precedent for this, Renee? Has this ever been done before?
Not to my knowledge while I've been here, but escrow arrangements are fairly common in large transactions. But normally what would happen is that we would just wait for the transfer, get paid, and then come back and do the certificate of completion. But the parties have a closing date for the transfer of January 8th. And the thing that's beneficial to the agency is that the contribution is not due until March 16th, 2019. So we would be getting paid sooner rather than March.
And will this, this was for affordable housing over in Jamaica Plain. Will that money stay in that area? Will they be able to find housing and create or build affordable housing in Jamaica Plain?
Yeah, that would be my part of this question. The $8.4 million it's been an agreement of, Director Golden was a part of this discussion several months ago, and Sheila Dillon has agreed that in fact the $8.4 million will stay in Mission Hill and Jamaica Plain. And the process will be that there will be a special request for proposals created by the Department of Neighborhood Development just for these funds. And there is clearly a number of projects both in Jamaica Plain and Mission Hill that are worthy of this funding. And so it will be a very competitive process, and probably several projects will be able to benefit from these funds.
Okay, great. Thank you. Are there any further questions from the board?
Is there any way that this is going to come back before us?
No, not unless the transfer doesn't occur until after March 16th, 2019. But it is scheduled to close and transfer January 8th.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
The ayes have it. Thank you, Renee.
Thank you.
Item number 15. Request authorization to issue a certificate of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the zoning code for the construction of 30 residential units, including 4 IDP units, commercial office space with 19 off-street parking spaces and bicycle storage located at 44 North Beacon Street, and to enter into an affordable rental agreement and restriction and a community benefit contribution agreement in connection with the proposed project, and to take all related actions. Lance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. The 44 North Beacon Street development site is located in the Union Square neighborhood of Alston. The site is approximately 17,649 square feet, which is currently occupied by a single-story concrete commercial building used as an ambulance dispatch facility with 14 parking spaces. In March of this year, Boston Real Estate Collaborative, LLC, filed a project notification form
which outlined the property nearly doubling the size, as you will see today. As a result of the extensive community process around this, with multiple public impact advisory group and abutter meetings, the project has gone through numerous iterations to address neighborhood concerns, including height, density, design, open space, snow removal, trash maintenance, among other things. The current proposal calls for a five-story building totaling 34,580 square feet, which will include 30 rental units and 1 commercial/office space with 19 parking spaces. 4 of the units will be designated as IDP units. Marty French, the project architect, will give you a brief overview, and the project proponents are here to answer questions for the board.
Okay, thank you, Lance.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Monty French. I'm the architect for the project. As Lance mentioned, we redesigned the project some time ago. The current design is kind of a tripartite top, middle, base type design, with terracotta being in the middle and the base, and fiber cement panel at the top. Those are some of the things that he's already explained. The site plan here outlines the parking in the back. We've got the green space at the front with planters, the entryway into the lobby here with the bike storage room off to the side, mail room, the commercial space, and then some of the unit spaces and the core of the space. Parking out back with the trash. Again, this is some of the layout options that we went through on the sidewalk entrance and how we integrated the planting along the street, the pedestrian walkway, and then our planted and hardscape green spaces along the face of the building with canopies and various other pieces. This is the terracotta base and terracotta middle that I'll show you later on. This is, both sides of the building have kind of 3 parts to it. There's each side is the lighter terracotta. The middle is inset with terracotta, and then it has balconies for each of the units. And then there's a cantilever out back where cars are parked underneath. The front of the building, kind of a similar setup, but a reveal that kind of helps break up the massing of the building. And the back of the building is very similar, where we try to break up the massing with the lighter pieces. The middle is inset with balconies again for the units. These are some various bird's eye perspectives, aerial views of the project, and street level views. These are a good representation of the entry sequence of the building. You can see into here the bike room, the lobby, the canopies, the planters, the good depth of hardscape and pedestrian walkways with plantings. Another close-up view here of that entry sequence. Access to the parking in the back is on one side for entrance and exit on the other side. And then this is just a quick representation of the color palette that we used as a study to create the top, middle, and base, again with terracotta, fiber cement panel, and some wood grain accents. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Does that conclude the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all's in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Lance. Congratulations. Item number 16, request authorization to issue a certificate of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the zoning code for the construction of 30 residential rental units, including 4 IDP units and 30 off-street parking spaces and bicycle storage located at 656 Saratoga Street, and to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief and to take all related actions. Raul.
Good afternoon, Chairman Burke, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, members of the board. The item before you this evening is the 656 Saratoga Street project in East Boston. The project site consists of 6 parcels of land, 6 parcels of vacant land fronting Saratoga and Chaucer Street. The proposal before you today consists of the construction of a 3-story residential building with 30 residential rental units, including 4 IDP units and 30 off-street parking spaces. The proponent began the Article 80 small project review process when they submitted a small project review application to the BPDA on October 2nd, 2018, which triggered a public comment period which concluded on December 6, 2018. During the public comment period, a BPDA-sponsored and advertised public meeting was held on October 29th, 2018 at the Salesian Boys and Girls Club of East Boston. In addition to the BPDA public review process, the proponent also conducted additional community outreach with the butters, local elected officials, area residents, and the Harborview Neighborhood Association to solicit input on the proposed project prior to and during the Article 80 review process. As a result of the feedback obtained during the review process, the proponent made a number of revisions to the proposal, including a reduction in height, number of units, and overall density. The project before you today reflects these changes. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to Richard Lins, counsel for the development team, to further presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Raul.
Thank you, Raul. Good afternoon, Chairman Burke, members of the board, Secretary Palamas, and Director Golden. My name is Richard Lins, and I'm pleased to be here today on behalf of MG2 with respect to the proposal at 656 Saratoga Street. As Raul indicated, this is the site. The site consists of 6 vacant parcels, probably the largest vacant site in this neighborhood, which directly abuts the McClellan Highway and provides easy access to the north and southbound sides of Route C1. It's also within relatively close walking distance to the MBTA's Wood Island train station, and also has other amenities in the area, including parks and Constitution Beach, which is relatively close. At this time, I'd like to invite Tim Lorenzer, who's with Embark Studio, the architect for this project, to walk through the plan and give a brief presentation.
Okay, thank you.
This is the existing condition on Saratoga Street, looking kind of southwest and from the other direction looking back down Saratoga Street. As you can see, it's mostly 2- and 3-story triple and duplexes with a lot of clapboard, bays and stuff like that. Our proposal itself kind of picks up the rhythm of those bays and protrusions. 3 stories sits just under 34 feet. It's comparable to most of the other buildings on the street. Material-wise, we have a kind of warm, subdued palette with a dark masonry at the base, and then a combination of cedar and fiber cement clapboard above, and then these framing elements that kind of divide each bay from one another to kind of break up the massing itself, and then some Juliet balconies as well on the top floor there to bring in some natural air to those units. On the rear, this is looking Chaucer Street's a one-way with access to 1A. Again, you can see triple deckers are 3.5 stories, about 35 to 40 feet tall. So again, the parking would be in the rear here, with units on the 2nd and 3rd floors. And again, we're breaking up the massing itself to give the appearance of kind of multiple buildings. It doesn't have it kind of breaks down the general massing. So this is a view from 1A itself. And you can see it's a fully enclosed garage with ventilation as needed within louvers. And then we're taking advantage of kind of residual space within the kind of the irregular property line shape to create some evergreen plantings and other plantings to create buffers between the building and the neighbors. So here's a site plan. You can see Saratoga's on the bottom, Chaucer up here. Enter the parking off of Chaucer from the rear. Chaucer sits 3 feet below Saratoga, so it gives us added depth for the parking itself. And then the lobby and 2 units even the ground floor with direct access off Saratoga. There'd be a common room for the residents in the rear with a private garden off of that. That common room is accessed both from the lobby space or from the street itself. On the left side, working with the direct abutter here, we pulled back the building 11 feet in order to give a little more room there. And then I highlight a couple of these areas. The garden in the rear off the common room, it'll be permeable pavers with a perimeter wood slat fence, some light ground covering to add some shade, and just kind of buffer the sound from that space to the neighboring homes. It would just be kind of light, kind of inactive space, maybe a fire pit, some seats. It wouldn't be active usage back there. Some picnic tables. Along the left side here, again, that path where you can access directly off the street. Some more planting here to take advantage of this vacant area. Some light ornamental grasses, a couple new trees, some seating off of the sidewalk itself. We plan on maintaining the street trees that are existing there or replacing them if needed. And then in that 11-foot setback to the left, we've also pulled back, so it's 11 feet at the second and third floors, and then on the ground level, we pulled it back an additional 8 feet to create some sheltered bike storage and kind of bike repair area. So that would also have access to the lobby directly from there. Turn it back over to Richard now.
Great. Okay, thank you.
I could just add, Mr. Chairman, very quickly. So this was the product of a very involved community process that spanned about 18 months. We held a total of 10 community meetings in the neighborhood and worked very closely with a lot of the abutters and neighborhood organizations to come up with a project that we feel was much better received from the original project that we showed.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy holidays. Happy New Year.
Item number 17. Request authorization to adopt a 14th report and decision amendment to the Dudley Neighbors, Inc., Chapter 121A project, which involves the transfer of interest to the ground lease and refinancing of the Brook Ave project, and to take all related actions. Raul.
Good afternoon again, Chairman Burke, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, members of the board. On November 27, 2018, Dudley Neighbors, Inc., also known as DNI, who's also the applicant, submitted an application for a 14th amendment to the report and decision for the Brook Avenue 121A project. The original developer of the Brook Avenue project is in the process of transferring its interest in the ground lease to EAFD Brook Ave Developer LLC. As part of the transfer, the transferee developer, who's the EAFD Brook Ave Developer LLC, is seeking to refinance the development, and through the refinancing process will fund the substantial rehabilitation of the existing 36 low and moderate income housing units situated within the development site. The transferee developer will also maintain the affordability of the Brook Ave project, with the units being available for families who are at or below 60% of the AMI. Because it is a 121A project, the applicant must seek and obtain BRA approval and consent for the refinancing of the development, as well as the transfer of interest from the original developer, who is Book Veterans Housing Cooperative Limited Partnership, to EAFD Brook Ave Developer LLC.
Thank you, Raul. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Item number 18, request authorization to adopt the third report and decision amendment to the Roxbury Mount Pleasant Apartments Chapter 121A project, which involves the refinancing of the project and to take all related actions. Mallory.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. The Roxbury Mount Pleasant Apartments Chapter 121A project consists of 11 buildings containing 98 residential units for individuals, families, and the elderly, located on Waverly Street, Intervale Street, Brunswick Street, and Copeland Street in the Roxbury neighborhood of Boston. On November 28, 2018, the applicant filed with the BPDA an application for approval of new mortgage financing and capital improvements and alterations for the project. The owner has received a loan commitment from Rockport Mortgage, Red Mortgage Capital, for a new permanent loan to be insured under the HUD 223F program in the estimated amount of $17,750,000. The financing will be used to complete over $3.5 million in repairs within the project. In connection with the refinancing, the owner will pay the BPDA approximately $68,000, or 1% of the proceeds, to be used for affordable housing and for other governmental purposes. Additionally, the applicant received a renewal of the HAP contract with a 50-year extension until January 1st, 2038. The BRA shall be identified as a party entitled to enforce the affordability restrictions within the HAP contract agreement.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 19, request authorization to adopt a third report and decision amendment to B'nai B'rith Chapter 121A project, which involves new mortgage financing and capital improvements and transfer of leasehold interest, and to take all related actions. Mallory.
Thank you again, Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. The B'nai B'rith Senior Housing Corporation Chapter 121A project consists of a 9-story building with 150 units of rental housing for the elderly and related surface parking lot for 40 vehicles in the Brighton neighborhood of Boston. On November 27, 2018, the owner submitted an application with the BPDA for a new mortgage loan of approximately $44 million, the assignment and assumption of 2 existing HUD Section 8 housing and assistance contracts, the assignment and assumption of a leasehold interest, the first amendment to the lease between the B'nai B'rith and the owner, and certain capital improvements and alterations to the project. The financing will be used in part for capital improvements within the project. Additionally, $31 million in an equity takeout will be used by the B'nai B'rith charitable nonprofit for creation and preservation of affordable housing in Boston. In connection with this refinancing, the owner intends to enter into a new HAP contract, 2 new HAP contracts, under the HUD markup to market program for a period of 20 years. The owner agrees that the BPDA shall be entitled to enforce the affordability restrictions in any new regulatory agreement associated with the loan. By approving the transfer and refinance of the project will continue to provide much-needed affordable housing for approximately 18 years beyond the term of the 121A status.
Okay, are there any questions from the board?
What does it mean that the BRA might be able to enforce the affordability restrictions? What does that mean?
Just as it says, so if for whatever reason the contract with Mass Housing should end, we would be able to enforce the affordability restrictions.
If there's no further questions, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Mallory. Item number 20 in Charlestown, request authorization to issue a certificate of completion pursuant to the amended and restated land disposition agreement with Timothy F. Sullivan for parcel 47X located at 47X Mead Street. Ray?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Director Goldman, Madam Secretary, and members of the board. Excuse me, on October 26, 2018, the BPDA received a request in writing from the 324 to 330 Bunker Street LLC, the developer, who requested the issuance of a certificate of completion for parcel 47X. On November 13th, BPDA landscape design staff conducted a site visit to parcel 47X, which is subject to a land disposition agreement. Staff issued a memo attached to your board memo that certifies that the landscape work required by the LDA has been fully completed, so it's recommended that the board please issue a certificate of completion.
Okay, thank you, Ray. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, the motion's in order. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Oh, thank you.
Ayes have it. Item number 21, personnel. Jeanette.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Golden. We have a few items for your consideration on the BRA agenda. We have 2 appointments for your consideration with details in the board memos. Nicole Poirier, General Counsel in the General Counsel Division, Office of General Counsel Department, with a start date of December 17th, and her title is Counsel. Siobhan Feeney, Director of Human Resources in the Administration and Finance Division, HR Department, with a start date of January 14th, 2019. We have 1 travel item for your consideration with details listed in the board memo. Trin Yin, Director of OWD in the Office of Workforce Development Division. We also have 1 departure for your consideration with details in the board memo. Janet Carlson, First Assistant General Counsel, Office of General Counsel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 2, contractual. We need a motion to pay the bills.
We pay our bills.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Number 23 is the director's update. Mr. Golden, do you have any update for us?
I'd like to defer until after the... Oh, I'm sorry.
No opportunity. You mean after the holidays?
Not this time. I could.
Concur.
But I suppose I should do an end of the year something, since this is our last gathering. I'd like to celebrate and recognize a few key activities that have occurred in the past few weeks, some big and some small, regarding our efforts to advance the cause of development in areas that benefit people all along the socioeconomic spectrum in the city. And so last week we did a groundbreaking over at O'Connor Way. It's 46 units of affordable elderly housing. They're being developed in South Boston. The funding for that project is generated by the Cronin Group's development at 150 Seaport, which this board approved some time ago. So once again, it's making sure that market rate development provides really significant, meaningful benefits for people who struggle more in this economy, who have a tough time with the cost of housing. This will be 46 units of low-income affordable housing for the elderly. We're grateful. That was a very happy breaking and addressing the needs of people all along the socioeconomic spectrum in Boston. I also want to call a little more attention to what we just talked about, the P12 designation. Parcel 12, which we've owned for a long time, it's terra firma, it's soil owned by the Boston Planning and Development Agency, and for many decades has been a parking lot on Tremont Street over in the theater district. That is not the highest, best use of that property. I think we all here can agree. I think the community agrees that there is something more that can be achieved there that pays dividends for the people of Boston. So tonight you've taken an important step in the tentative designation process in moving the P12 project forward. It's 171 units. 100% of them are affordable. That is a remarkable accomplishment. We're able to do that because we can control the land. That's an important factor in making sure that is feasible. But it's 171 units of affordable housing. It's economic vitality in the form of expansion of the hotel, as well as parking for a really important medical center. And let's face it, the eds and the meds, the educational facilities and the medical institutions in Boston drive a really significant portion of our economy, not to mention in the case of this hospital, treating sick people with some of the best medical care in America. So we're facilitating the parking expansion needs of Tufts Medical Center as well. A lot going on now with that project on Parcel 12, but again, it pays really significant benefits in a variety of ways for the people of Boston, and it's again heeding the call of Mayor Walsh that the BPDA put its property to better use for the residents of Boston. Smaller thing, Liberty Tree Plaza, not far from Tufts Medical Center in the P12 department. Liberty Tree Plaza, last week we did a ribbon cutting, a $1.3 million improvement of the hardscape outside of 2 Boylston Street at the intersection of Boylston and Washington. We all know what that part of the city used to look like 20, 30 years ago. We continue to play a really important role in making that a more welcoming gathering place by this investment, $600,000 plus from the Kensington development nearby. $400,000 of BPDA funds poured into that site to make sure that is an important new piece of public realm that is welcoming and transformative to that part of the city. We've already transformed the building, which we own, 2 Boylston. It's home to the International Institute, which provides education opportunities for primarily an immigrant population, as well as the Urban College of Boston, which provides higher ed services and opportunities to a population of Boston that tends historically not to have had an easy time accessing higher ed. So we're really, and not to mention the library services that are currently located in 2 Boylston. They'll soon move over if the Parcel 12 development goes forward. Library services currently in our building at 2 Boylston will hopefully find a home at Parcel 12 before long in a much more expansive setting. So both inside and outside that building, really important stuff going on for the immediate neighborhood, but with significant beneficial effects for people throughout the city. I want to call attention to a meeting that occurred last Friday. The entire staff of this agency went over to the Marine Industrial Park, the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park, to do some diversity and implicit bias training. Almost everyone on staff made it. And simply put, we conducted that training because we are really committed to building a healthy culture here, making sure that we celebrate our diversity in this organization. It is a very diverse organization with outstanding skill sets, but we want to make sure that this organization operates with an eye toward fairness and equity and respect. So we all gathered for the better part of a day to talk about the environment, to learn more about implicit bias, to take a good hard look at ourselves, as well as our environment in the workplace with an eye toward making it a welcoming, respectful, decent place to work for all. It's only the beginning. These conversations will occur well into the future. But I also want to highlight some things that we took up there with regard to peer recognition. So we had a nomination process earlier in the year, and the workforce was encouraged to identify some of their coworkers and with an eye towards celebrating their effects and their contributions in sometimes profound and important ways. So I just want to literally speak these staff members' names. Outstanding performance. We celebrated Jeff Ning, Ala Ziskin, and Dennis Davis for the work they do. Jeff's in IT. Ala does really important maps that help us both internally and externally, communicating visual information about buildings and their context. Really important for us to see, as well as the members of the public that we're communicating with through our planning and development review processes. And Dennis Davis, he does a lot of the deals associated with our properties that provide a lot of the operating revenue that funds the organization. We also celebrated a project team, Nate Smith, Ruth Adele, and Tammy Donovan. They have been spending a lot of time, hopefully, and I believe, turning this agency into, it's a continuing effort, but we aim to be a paragon of virtue when it comes to records management. So, you know, it wasn't so long ago we were still sort of an analog agency in a digital world. We're more of a digital agency now, and we're using state-of-the-art technology and business practices to manage our records in a way that works for us, that allows us to do our jobs better and access important information about legacy projects from way back, as well as a more contemporaneous efforts. But this is important also for the externalities. The public seeks records on a regular basis. We have a large number of public records requests at any given time. The records management technology that we're employing is really important in allowing us to address the needs of the public with regard to information and transparency. Finally, the Office of Workforce Development, we celebrated the finance team there. That's Judy Starity, Devin Wedge, and Julie Finns. They are the folks who make sure that the roughly $15 to $20 million, depending on the year, that comes in for workforce training is processed for the end users, usually vendors who provide these job training services for us. They serve thousands of people a year in Boston, helping them develop the skill sets that allow them to compete for jobs or better jobs in this economy. So we salute the work of the Office of Workforce Development's finance team. Now, finally, I want to talk about a really special member of the staff. You know, each one of us in this agency is involved in a creative endeavor, and that creative endeavor is creating, nurturing, and improving one of the great cities of the world. Some of us do it externally with development review processes, community planning processes, design conversations. Some of us do workforce development to make sure that Bostonians are getting the skill sets they need to compete in the economy of the 21st century. Some of us are managing 11 million square feet of property that this agency owns. And then there are the internal support roles. It's IT, information technology, information systems, human resources, administration and finance, and legal. Nothing gets done in this agency. Nothing gets done unless all of these functions, internal and external, work well together. So in this context, I want to celebrate the work of Janet Carlson. Janet has worked in our legal department, the Office of General Counsel, for more than 33 years, and tomorrow is Janet's last day. She's retiring. There are a few people, this is crystal clear, there are a few people in the BPDA's history who have played as important a role in our collective creative effort. Janet's been here for more than half the agency's history. She's done the sophisticated, challenging legal work necessary to build millions of square feet of development over those 3+ decades of her service. It's office space, it's housing, especially thousands of units of affordable housing. It's open space, it's cultural facilities, it's educational and medical facilities. Her work will literally benefit many generations of Bostonians to come. We celebrate her work. She's a real professional. She's a wonderful friend. She works really hard and late every day, including weekends. Janet has really made profound contributions here, and she's been a supportive friend to all of us and a really pleasant person. I always say this, Janet is one of the smiliest people I know. She is always smiling, even when the sky is falling, even in the middle of the most controversial conversations. Janet is smiling. Her presence will be missed. We wish her a long, happy, healthy retirement with her daughter and her son. So Godspeed, and thank you, Janet Carlson. With that, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and pleasant evening to you all.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Are there any questions of Brian from the board? Any comments? I also want to extend best wishes and congratulations to Janet for 33 years of service. That's quite an accomplishment for anyone to pull off, I tell you. I hope she, like I say, I hope she does well. Please extend our congratulations to her.
We certainly will, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
So if there's no other questions or comments or motions in order to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.